The retirees who seem happiest with money are not necessarily the ones spending the most. In fact, some of the things they do differently involve spending less. What changes is that their money has a clearer job. Instead of treating every dollar as something to preserve forever, they become more intentional about what should be protected, what should be used, and what is no longer worth paying for. That does not mean financial security stops mattering. It means security begins to serve a larger purpose. Here are 8 things some happy retirees do differently with money. First, they know what their money is for. During working years, the goal is often simple: earn, save, invest, repeat. Retirement makes that less obvious. If every dollar still feels like money that should remain untouched, then even a healthy portfolio can feel psychologically unavailable. Retirees who are more comfortable with money often give it clearer roles. Some money is there for essential expenses. Some is there for emergencies. Some protects long-term security. And some is meant to support the life they worked decades to reach. That distinction matters because money without a clear purpose tends to become money that is difficult to use. A retiree may be able to afford a meaningful trip, a home improvement, or time with family, and still feel guilty simply because spending feels like failure. The problem is not always the expense. Sometimes it is that no part of the money was ever given permission to become life. If you value thoughtful conversations about retirement, money, and the psychology behind both, consider subscribing. Second, they protect margin, not just net worth. A large portfolio can provide security, but so can having room in your monthly life. Happy retirees are often careful about filling retirement with new fixed expenses just because they can afford them. A larger home, another car payment, more subscriptions, expensive memberships, or constant upgrades may look manageable individually. Together, they can quietly reduce flexibility. That matters because financial margin gives you choices. It lets you absorb an unexpected expense, help someone you care about, change plans, travel occasionally, or simply spend without feeling that every dollar is already committed. The goal is not to keep expenses as low as possible. It is to avoid building a lifestyle so rigid that more wealth creates more obligation instead of more freedom. Third, they spend without guilt when the expense has a clear purpose. Some retirees become so good at saving that spending remains emotionally uncomfortable even after retirement. That makes sense. For decades, not spending may have represented discipline, safety, and responsibility. But retirement can require a different skill, knowing when spending is reasonable. A retiree may decide that a family trip, a hobby, a more comfortable chair, or a service that makes daily life easier is worth the cost. The important part is not that they spend, it is that they can connect the expense to something they genuinely value. When the purpose is clear and the financial capacity is there, they do not automatically treat the purchase as a mistake. That allows money to support life without turning every decision into a moral test. Fourth, they stop paying for a life they no longer want. Retirement changes routines, priorities, and sometimes identity. But expenses do not always change with them. People can keep paying for houses, memberships, vehicles, social habits, and possessions that belonged to an earlier version of their life. And those costs are not only financial. A larger house requires maintenance. An extra vehicle requires attention. A commitment that no longer matters still consumes time and energy. Happy retirees often become more willing to ask a simple question: does this still belong in my life? Simplifying is not about deprivation. It is about removing the things that keep charging you for a lifestyle you are no longer trying to maintain. I've left a few additional resources related to retirement and financial decision-making in the description and pinned comment below. Fifth, they pay for convenience when it buys back something valuable. Saving money is useful, but there are moments when saving money can cost too much in another currency: time. Energy, stress, physical effort. A retiree may pay for delivery instead of spending an afternoon running errands. They may hire help for a task that has become exhausting. They may choose the easier travel option rather than the cheapest one. That does not mean outsourcing everything. It means asking a better question than, what costs less? Sometimes the better question is, what am I buying back? If a reasonable expense gives you several hours, reduces strain, or protects your energy for something that matters more, the value may be greater than the price suggests. Sixth, they do not let other retirees set their lifestyle. Comparison becomes expensive very quickly. A friend renovates the kitchen. Someone else travels several times a year. A neighbor buys a new car. None of those things are necessarily bad. The problem begins when someone else's lifestyle quietly becomes your new definition of normal. Retirees who feel more content with money tend to have a stronger internal reference point. They can admire what someone else has without automatically converting it into a requirement for their own life. This matters because comparison constantly moves the finish line. A lifestyle that felt comfortable yesterday can suddenly feel inadequate simply because someone nearby chose something more expensive. When your definition of enough comes from other people, it rarely stays still. Seventh, they spend more easily on what they value and less easily on what they do not. This is where intentional money behavior starts to become visible. Happy retirees are not necessarily balanced spenders in every category. They may spend generously in one area and surprisingly little in another. One person may care deeply about travel, but have no interest in a new car. Another may spend on hobbies and comfort at home while rarely eating at expensive restaurants. Someone else may prioritize family experiences and care very little about status purchases. The pattern is not frugality or extravagance. It is alignment. Their spending begins to reflect what they actually value rather than what people with their income, age, or social circle are expected to value. That can make the same amount of money feel far more useful. Eighth, they have a working definition of enough. This may be the most important difference. Without some definition of enough, every financial goal can keep moving. A little more savings, a little more cushion, a little more security, a little more certainty. And because complete certainty does not exist, the process never naturally ends. Having a definition of enough does not mean ignoring inflation, longevity, health costs, or financial risk. It means understanding what your money is protecting and what you are no longer willing to sacrifice just to make the number larger. That distinction changes retirement. Enough is not saying, I do not need more money. It is saying, I know what this money is for. That creates a boundary between responsible preparation and endless postponement. And it makes an important question possible. If someone looked at where your money, time, and energy go today, would they be able to tell what matters most to you? You do not need to redesign your entire financial life to answer that question. You might simply notice one expense that no longer belongs in your life, or one thing you genuinely value that you keep treating as automatically too expensive, even when it fits comfortably within your plan. The point is not to spend more. It is to make the relationship between your money and your life more deliberate. Happy retirees have not discovered a secret formula for spending. They simply stop treating every expense as a threat, every act of saving as a virtue, and every increase in net worth as automatic proof that life is getting better. Money still matters because it creates security and options, but retirement becomes richer when that security begins to show up as margin, time, energy, connection, choice, and peace. The point of financial security is not simply to have more money protected from life. It is to have more of your life protected by money. If you enjoyed this video and want more thoughtful insights on retirement and money, watch the next video on your screen.